Hello everyone, my name is Eostrix. Today I'm introducing my commander deck, Roll for Damage. Roll for Damage is helmed by the creature and enchantment pairing Wyll, Blade of Frontiers, and Dungeon Delver. You can see where this is going if you know them by name, but if you don't, let me tell you just in case. Wyll, Blade of Frontiers is a 1/1 legendary creature human warlock for 1 and a red that has 3 abilities. The first is if you would roll 1 or more dice, roll that many plus 1 and ignore the lowest roll. The second is whenever you roll 1 or more dice, put a +1/+1 counter on Wyll, Blade of Frontiers. And lastly, choose a background, which is partner but for enchantments, of which I chose Dungeon Delver, a legendary enchantment background for 1 and a blue that states, commander creatures you own have room abilities of dungeons you control trigger an additional time. With these in mind, you can probably see where this is going: dice rolling, dungeons, and if you're a bit spicy like I am, a bit of treasure and coin flips for fun. But don't let that get you too comfortable, as this is meant to be a spellslinger/combo deck meant to help me catch up with the power creep in my friend group. In which case, I'm hoping that making these videos will eventually fuel my addiction to these cards with my friends. Ignoring my probable bad life choices, let's begin with another version of grouping, and you can tell me what you all like later. For the lands in this deck, we have Fabled Passage, Frostboil Snarl, Path of Ancestry, Prismari Campus, Scalding Tarn, Silver Buff Bridge, Stormcarved Coast, Swiftwater Cliffs, Temple of Epiphany, Volatile Fjord, 11 Islands, and 11 Mountains. Shifting gears, let's get to our creatures. I didn't really mean to, but we did end up with some Wizard, Shaman, Tribal thing here, and I think that's pretty cool. Alphabetically, we have Aberrant Mind Sorcerer, helps us grab a few instants and sorceries out of our graveyard and rolls dice. Archmage Mertius draws us a card whenever we cast or copy a spell, and it could probably draw us our library if it was given the chance. Brazen Dwarf deals damage whenever we roll dice, which is hopefully extremely often. Kazik Chaos Adventurer takes the initiative and could grant us a free casting of a card off of our library. Chaos Channeler Impulse draws up to 3 cards via dice roll. Delina Wild Mage, my recently favorite card to play with, makes tokens of any creature based on how many dice you get over 15. I've been playing this in Arena and I love it, and if you'd like to see it, you can see it on Twitch. Displacer Beast enters dungeons, stealth bounces, it's kind of a mad blocker, but it works. Displacer Kitten is stupidly broken, probably shouldn't exist, but it is a must-have. Dualcaster Mage copies spells when it enters the battlefield, which is something we are looking to do a lot of, and mixed with our bounce spells, it may be hella fun. Faraday, Devil's Chosen, a commander in its own right, it draws us cards about half the time, so that's pretty dope. Feywild Trickster, similar to Brazen Dwarf, but turn the damage into tokens with flying. Harmonic Prodigy, as seen on game nights, it doubles Wizard and Shaman abilities, which we have a bunch of because they kinda have the abilities we want. Moen Trickster, also a commander we could use if I had picked a red background, that is, but draws us cards based on the initiative and dungeons. Krark the Thumbless, basically a CEDH card, but works well in copy decks. Yes, I stole this idea from you, Spencer. You can suck it. Layla the Blade Reforged gets bigger based on her impulse draws and stuff like Absorption Rod, Wizard Spellbook, or Arcane Bombardment. Mira, Wild Mage, another commander we could use, is kinda like Wild Magic Surge, but for any of our spells, and is stupidly fun. Pixie Guide lets us roll an additional dice, but on a body. Shortcut Seeker enters a dungeon on combat damage, so that's pretty dope. Stormkilled Artist, another stupidly powerful Strixhaven card that makes treasures whenever you cast or copy a spell. Swarming Goblins makes a couple goblins based on a dice roll. It's a good bounce target. Tavern Scoundrel flips a coin and makes treasures on a gamble. I thought it'd be fun as well. Tomb of Horrors Adventure takes the initiative and copies spells based on dungeons and initiative. Badric, Astral Archmage, lowers the cost of instants and sorceries based on his power, a good +1/+1 target. Therein, Voice of Duality, Harmonic Prodigy for our instants and sorceries if they trigger something. Wizards of They lowers the cost of our spells, and is a good or bad situation, we can swing with it to get some advantage for a sec via Myriad. Editing Eostrix here, Iwan T. Malison. It can be blocked and can venture into the dungeon when it deals combat damage. I think there is some cool synergy here, especially with the amount of copying and doubling I'm looking to do of abilities and spells. Speaking of which, we're going to move on to my favorite card type, Enchantments. Arcane Bombardment snowballs rapidly by exiling a spell from our graveyard to then copy each thing we've exiled. I love its design and I recommend launching some DeckTechs with it. Barbarian class, a powerhouse in this deck, adds additional dice, gives creatures +2/+0, and menace for each dice roll, and haste, if we level it up, that is. Curiosity draws us cards whenever the permanent deals damage, so Brazen Dwarf for sure. Double Vision copies a first spell we cast each turn. Metallurgic Summonings makes constructs based on the mana value of the spell that we cast, a good board presence, and it can return our spells from our graveyard once sacrificed. Mirror March copies creatures on entry based on luck once more. I wanted to make a Jeskai Wizards deck with this, but I never really got around to it. Omniscience, this is only the second time I've put this in a deck now, but it is a very good game ender, if we have a good hand, that is. Reflections of Lijara copies creatures based on their type, so Mirror March, but more permanent and less of them. In Sorcerer's class, could technically be called Ramp, but it's Damage Inflictor and a Rowager. See what I mean about copying now? Some of these pieces might need to be moved into my Brutaclad deck, now that I'm seeing them here, but that's for later. And for what is essentially an enchantment but colorless, we have our artifacts. Bucknard's Everfull Purse rolls a d4 for treasure, but is meant for more fun than anything else. Conjurer's Class repeatedly bounces at least one permanent at our end step. Panharmonica, double triggered by ETB. Ceravuk's Tome, a weird version mana thing. I don't know, I just wanted to put it in here to be honest. The Deck of Many Things, very useful for drawing cards, but can also return cards from our graveyard, or if we have no hand, could bring a creature back if we're lucky. Treasure Chest, almost a deck of many things, but it has to be sacrificed. Twinning Staff copies our instants and sorcery passively if we're to make a copy already. Vexine Puzzle Box rolls a lot of d20s and allows us to search for artifact cards. Wand of Wonder rolls a d20 to allow us to cast our opponent's spells, which is pretty cool if you ask me. Wizard Spellbook may be replaced with Absorption Rod, but I don't know yet, but still really fun to play with as it allows us to replay our spells, and if we hit a d20, which hopefully we will with our re-rollers, we get to cast each thing exiled underneath it, similar to Arcane Bombardment. Now, what is a Spellslinger deck without the Spellslinging? For our slower speed spells, Arcane Endeavor rolls 2d8 to let us draw cards, then cast one spell for free from our hand. Raza's Bounty makes treasures equal to the number of our lands, definitely something to copy for us to do even more stuff. Crackle with Power, with how this has been in recent games, I put this in here as a win con because it is stupidly dumb. Heat Shimmer makes a token of a creature that is only there until end of turn, but this will be copied for sure. Irenicus's Vile Duplication. Opponent more mana, Spark Double, but with flying instead of a +1/+1, and I think that's pretty damn cool. Karn's Temporal Sundering, it can be an extra turn spell if necessary, but can also bounce a permanent. Kick in the Door, this card is meant to give haste primarily, but also buffs and enters the dungeon. Mana Geyser, surprise, it's a ritual spell. Power of Persuasion, honestly I just wanted a card that rolled more dice, so this is indeed that card. Reckless Endeavor, a board wipe that also makes treasures for us, might be the worst thing to copy unless we try to roll low, or give everything indestructible, but we don't exactly have that. Rite of Replication, this is the way we are going to make our spells cheaper, or just make some really dumb things happen. And Time Warp, cards but with less restriction, and it doesn't bounce permanent. Now for the fast things that half are honestly stupidly powerful. Blur gets a round removal, but also allows for a second ETB trigger and draws a card. Critical Hit, a returning spell that should come to our hand more than once after it's been cast. Displace, same thing as Blur, but for 2 creatures and no card. Diviner's Portent, draws us cards and instant speed. Goblin Wizardry makes 2 Prowess Wizards for 4 mana and probably will be copied. Invoke Calamity, a spell that lets us cast 2 other spells to hopefully have them exiled underneath something else to cast them again. Mystical Tutor searches for an instant or sorcery at instant speed for 1 blue mana, so it's a steal. Storm King's Thunder copies things a lot after you dump mana into it, which we hopefully can. And Wild Magic Surge, we can turn big things into small things, and not vice versa. Overall, this deck is an 8 to 9 out of 10, but I haven't actually played with it as it's still coming in the mail. I'll make an update video on all my recent and old deck techs here soon, but that's a lot more work, and you saw how I am with putting this one out. Thank you for watching. If you enjoyed, please like and subscribe. Goodbye.